Hello everyone, and welcome back to the Dreary Eerie, your one-stop shop for all recordings that are cringy and poorly made. Today I'm finally making a Call of Cthulhu video. It's been a long time since I've ever done anything related to Call of Cthulhu on this channel. If you want to see it, you can go and try and find it. I'm not going to, lead you to it. It's old shame. I'm not proud of it. But let's get on with the cringe fest, shall we? Call of Cthulhu has a special place in the heart of many a role player. It was the first of many half-finished projects we put out on this channel, and one of the few times we actually recorded a role-playing session. Yeah. You might not want to go and check it out. So what makes Call of Cthulhu such a beloved game among role players? Well, I'm about to explain. That's right. I'm about to explain this to you, because I'm the most qualified. You see, Call of Cthulhu is one of the old, venerable games of the tabletop, and the best representative of its genre, that is to say horror, in the entire field of role-playing games. First released in 1981, it can claim D&D, Traveller, and RuneQuest among its contemporaries. But there's no other horror game out there that works quite like Call of Cthulhu, and at the time of its release, it was basically the only one on the market. Call of Cthulhu boasted a unique system unrelated to that of Dungeons & Dragons, Traveller, or any other important role-playing game of the time. Along with that, its focus on sanity and the use of characters invented by H.P. Lovecraft and his writers' circle was definitely a unique idea. Before then, many RPGs had gotten off of fantasy and sci-fi tropes, and the role-playing game genre was incredibly new, given that Dungeons & Dragons First Edition had only come out in '74. So this was only 7 years after the invention of the tabletop role-playing game really took off, though many would say it started with chainmail, which is an earlier invention. So not only do we see this as the first really successful tabletop horror RPG, it's also one of the first. The idea that Lovecraftian horror would be one of the first representatives of the horror genre in general on tabletop definitely shows the appeal of Lovecraft to the role-playing crowd. Through a few of the reasons why people love Call of Cthulhu so much. Now, these are my personal opinions, but I think they probably appeal to a lot of people as well. I'd be happy to get comments and opinions on this, but let's face it, this is the Dreary Eerie. Draw number 1. You gets to kill people. Yeah. That's probably the biggest draw for me in all of Dungeons & Dragons and all other role-playing games. Is it's really hard to kill players a lot of the time. There are some nice brutal games out there like Aces and Eights, which I'll probably talk about later, but this is the game that is notorious for killing people. It has the Cthulhu meme, so to speak, which I'll get into in a second. Being primarily a GM when I play RPGs, I understand the need to kill your friends on occasion. Sometimes you can't help but end the life of an annoying character, whether he be the elf with a superiority complex, the wizard who constantly shouts his attacks, or in other words, myself, or the gnome who tries to impersonate Gilbert Godfrey. The gnome who tries to impersonate Gilbert Godfrey. I can't do a Gilbert Godfrey voice. I'll get Brendan to do it for me. Brendan! Brendan! He doesn't live with me. Unfortunately, D&D generally frowns on the DM who kills his players constantly. Enter Call of Cthulhu, the game invented for the sadistic GM. Anyone familiar with the Cthulhu mythos should not be surprised, but Call of Cthulhu seems to have been made with character death in mind, and TPK is not uncommon. Now, the book expressly states that it does not encourage this, but let's not pretend that Call of Cthulhu isn't meant for party murder. Someday, you will summon a Shoggoth to crush the party to death, and you will do it with a smile. It is probably the first to really enjoy just enjoy killing off its players, but first edition Call of Cthulhu isn't really all that more brutal than first edition D&D when it comes to rules. First edition D&D, you could die very easily. It's just that role-playing games have become more about the role-playing over the years, and I'm going to tell you in just a few minutes why Call of Cthulhu also trumps other games when it comes to role-playing. But it's important to note that Call of Cthulhu has stayed mostly brutal over the years, whereas other RPGs have lost their edge. Well, Call of Cthulhu isn't about just needlessly murdering your players. It's more so about ending the players' lives in a fair way. If a player flubs his rolls a few times and he ends up dying, well, that's just accepted. This is a kind of mindset that doesn't exist in modern role-playing anymore. There isn't nearly as much of an acceptance on the player's side to accept a character death because things didn't go their way. But let's face it, in the end, life is random. Mistakes happen. You can't control everything, and Call of Cthulhu is about the fact that humans can't control anything. So obviously death would come easily. You have few hit points. Monsters do massive amounts of damage regardless of what they roll. This is just how Call of Cthulhu works. So, if you're a normal GM, you'll enjoy Call of Cthulhu's change of pace. If you're a sadistic GM, you'll really love Call of Cthulhu for allowing you to murder people in many multitudinous ways. That was an attempt at alliteration. And that itself was alliteration. Neat. Moving on. Okay, draw number 2. The Mythos. Over the years, no literary universe has been so freely expanded as the Lovecraft mythos. A point of contention in the fan base, but a great boon to us making a campaign. Looking at you, August Derleth. Staring contest. Ah, fuck you, Derleth. The entities, cults, and tomes of the mythos are not only vast, but ripe for expansion by an enterprising GM. Lovecraft's works, like it or not, have become very modular. At the same time, the original works of Lovecraft are so rich in their vision that one is not left lacking even within those constraints. The dark universe of Lovecraft, where the normal veneer of society is so easily thrown away by the appearance of monsters from out of space, is unmatched in literature, though many have tried. The mythos easily complements the game system. People go insane so much in Lovecraft that it's a cliché, and it certainly became a major selling point for the game when it first appeared in '81. Think about that. The whole sanity system basically exists because Lovecraft loved to use it as a trope. Lovecraft's mythos gives us near endless possibilities in countless settings, from battles with cultists, to fish people, to matching wits with the crawling chaos himself. The mythos has many a great idea in it, and provides a unique setting for any kind of adventure, be it pulp or horror. In D&D and especially Pathfinder, cosmic horrors too often become just another face to pummel or burn, with little consideration given to the truly horrific nature of these beings. I mean, in Pathfinder, they're basically telling you to go out and kill Cthulhu. True, I wouldn't recommend that, looking at these stats here, but you can try. Though it's nice to see D&D giving homage to Call of Cthulhu, these monstrosities truly belong at home in the mythos, where they are alien and sublimely horrifying to the sane man's uncomprehending eyes. I still remember the absolute glee that I have when I'm making a campaign, and players have absolutely no idea where I'm going with it, and that's the great thing about Call of Cthulhu. The players, as long as you've got nice ignorant players like me who don't know anything about the mythos, well, sorry. All my players know basically nothing about the mythos, so they are constantly on edge whenever something remotely creepy happens, and then a zombie tries to bite the homeless man. It's so good. The Lovecraft mythos has anything, creatures large and small. Normally you want to go with the small. But the real strength of Lovecraft is not that the characters are helpless, it's that, in the end, their actions don't really mean much. Even if they survive, the creatures from the outside of the universe still exist. are still immensely powerful. You stopped one cult from summoning Cthulhu, but Cthulhu is still out there, and at any moment he could rise from relay and bring about the destruction of the earth. Draw number 3. The system. The basic role-playing system that Call of Cthulhu is based on is both simple and effective. It uses normal percentile dice and a quick and painless character creation system. It is oft-maligned for not having the same intricacy as the venerated D20 system, but there's a good reason for this. Call of Cthulhu is a role-playing game, where character actions matter and peril is everywhere. In a game where death comes so swiftly, the system has to take a back seat to the myriad of ways in which the character can be chewed up and swallowed by monsters. The Call of Cthulhu system works well enough, and the 7th edition has done even more to make the system practical, but in the end, the elegant simplicity of the Call of Cthulhu system works wonders with the game. Not only can players get in quickly, but simple character creation means when your character inevitably dies or goes mad, there's always someone on backup not far behind. The cornerstone of this system is still sanity, the trademark of any Eldritch game. Sanity is a precious treasure, meant to be safeguarded, but our players have entered the very line of work where such a thing is not possible. Sanity is far too easy to lose, and far too hard to recover. What's worse, as one's knowledge of the mythos, knowledge of the true working of the universe increases, so does their sanity decrease accordingly, and permanently. Encountering the entities of the mythos leads to death or madness, but attempting to understand the mythos is an even more foolish prospect. How great it must be to find your best bet for defeating the horrors from beyond the veil. Forbidden secrets must also be the key to one's demise. Moving on, the system boils down to roll under your sanity score, you succeed, above, you fail. However, making your roll does not save you. All but the tamest of mythos monsters will take a portion of your sanity, no matter how well in the head you are. An example is seeing Great Cthulhu himself. Seeing the Great Old One will cost you 1d100 sanity on a failed save, perhaps losing all of your sanity in a single roll, but a whopping 1d10 even upon a success. One is more likely to go temporarily insane from succeeding a roll than they are to not. The game thankfully gives us a lot of mileage out of insanity, as we get to assign permanent mental illness on player characters as well. This can range from a phobia of trains to necrophilia. I assume that would get you in quite a bit of trouble with the police. Come on, guys, it's 2016. Be more accepting. Everything else in Call of Cthulhu handled very well, if simply. Combat mechanics are iffy, but 7th edition has given us the best version yet, allowing for devastating fistfights and dangerous projectiles, even if automatic weapons aren't really allowed to go full auto. I mean, seriously, why do we count Thompson bullets in bursts instead of just spraying them everywhere? It's to account for accuracy, I know, but it's just it's the best they can do. The system, I believe, is strongest in its character creation. Players choose skills based on their occupation, but also on hobbies, expanding their options, though this mostly ends up being an archaeologist who is both a sniper and a master fencer, for reasons seldom explained. If you did watch my old video, you will recall that there was a biologist who was surprisingly handy with a shotgun. In Call of Cthulhu, there is no leveling, and one's base stats are mostly set in stone, especially in the case of HP, that most precious of lifeblood. Instead, characters can only increase their abilities through constant use of their skills. They are rewarded for successes by a chance to increase their skill, encouraging the player to find uses for every skill, and even inspiring risk-taking that otherwise would not occur. In this way, Call of Cthulhu truly captures the human condition. We constantly strive to improve, but in the end, we're only human. And my god, does this system stress that. If you take a look at the monsters that you can fight, their strength levels, and their intelligence, and their wisdom basically don't cap anywhere, but humans all have specific caps, and we are incredibly weak in comparison to so many other creatures in the mythos. This is great. This means that the system is encouraging players to think about their actions, because even fighting other humans, as in real life, is an incredibly dangerous prospect, but fighting anything beyond that is near suicidal, and the game does not really sugarcoat that. The investigators are the most prepared, the most qualified people to fight the darkness, and yet they are completely unprepared from a cosmic perspective. Draw 4 I would like to make. Endless possibilities. Think about this for a second. Why do people love Dungeons & Dragons? People love Dungeons & Dragons because of its potential for adventure and storytelling. People love the idea of a fantasy setting with great personal freedom where you get to be a badass. Truly, there could be no greater freedom. Well, if you've been watching this video so far, there is, and it comes from Call of Cthulhu. What, I hear you ask? But how can Call of Cthulhu, a relatively linear investigation game, be more open to imagination than Dungeons & Dragons? Again, the strength is in simplicity. Dungeons & Dragons has a limit of certain races and classes you can choose from, with your occupation essentially boiling down to your class. As an adventurer, you are forced to live out your class more so than you are any occupation you might have had. A good DM can work around this, but that's generally how it works. In Call of Cthulhu, however, your character can be any number of real-world occupations, though they do lay out some archetypes in the book, and you can plan their skills accordingly. I've always liked systems that do away with classes and let you build your character skill by skill, and Call of Cthulhu is built with just that bit of direction in mind. A PC can be a physicist, a psychologist, a waiter, a soldier, an oddly popular choice, and even a homeless man, as I once learned. Link. On that point, you can also be a frothing racist. Again, something I've already encountered. Though I do not recommend it. It is frowned upon in most places. True, Call of Cthulhu limits you based on its 1920s setting and real-world logic it operates on, but the same can be said for any game when it comes to the system itself. But Call of Cthulhu gives the opportunity to build a character who can be anything, do anything, except for beat Cthulhu, and perfectly mesh with the rest of your party. In D&D, a certain party build can ruin the time. Why is there never a healer? Never a healer. Draw number 5. The monsters. Lovecraft has terrifying, spooky monsters. Most of them being living tentacles. Like, probably 90%. Lots of tentacles! Anywho, the designs are pretty neat, and the otherworldly nature leads to unique and bizarre encounters with horrid creatures. You have your standard horror fare of zombies and vampires and werewolves, oh my! And then protoplasmic monstrosities like Shoggoths, Gugs, Deep Ones, Yithians, Migo, Gnofke, etc. You will never get through all of these monsters. Unless, you can, but the point is that it's difficult. The gods of the mythos range from walking octopoids to giant balls of flame to things so complicated you go insane from the sheer inability to comprehend him. He's a nice guy. I talked to him on the phone. Clever fiends such as Nyarlathotep and Hastur, as well as mindless blob horrors like Ubo-Sathla, give plenty of devious monstrosities to torment our protagonists. The problem is that these concepts are basically too awesome and you can't really use them as much as you'd like. Generally, if a party runs into one, it's game over already. This knowledge leads a sane party to drag trucks full of volatile fuel everywhere for heroic kamikaze attacks in case one shows up. For evidence, read the tale of Old Man Henderson. It's probably a better use of your time than staying here. I'd say the fact that the monsters of Lovecraft either will crush you to death or mangle you, but many of them will do other things that are also ridiculous. Colors out of space will drain the life from someone's body until they're just a little husk, and then they'll eventually disintegrate. The Mi-Go will cut out your brain and carry it around in a jar. The Yithians will swap bodies with people. A lot of monsters will literally just absorb you, which is pretty fucking creepy. There's so many ways to die in Lovecraft. Star vampires. Star vampires will just suck the blood out of you. We can go on and on about all the different forms of monstrosities and what they can do to you. But D&D lacks this, and many other games lack this, inventive way of killing characters, because generally it would be considered unfair if such a thing were to happen to a player character in those games. In Call of Cthulhu, again, it's par for the course. This leads me to my greatest point about Call of Cthulhu, and one that seems to contradict other things that I've said. The feeling of helplessness. The party in an adventure RPG seldom gets to be scared of anything. And even in D&D, parties often feel still in control of themselves. In D&D and others of its ilk, your character is unlikely to die unless you are really unlucky, or your DM is proving a point, or your DM is a douchebag. Other games, like Shadowrun, chew up characters and spit them out at a rate that you become prepared to lose them. Call of Cthulhu embraces the idea of the latter style, while also making your character far weaker. Your characters do not level up, they do not arbitrarily grow stronger, they do not gain any karma points or anything like that to gain more strength. The only strength is in their skills and the wits of their player. And as a GM, that is scary. Roleplayers are not the most logical bunch all the time, and are prone to slip-ups and dismemberment, among many others. Call of Cthulhu is a game where players must go in expecting to not even survive the adventure, let alone come out unscathed. You are at the mercy of the forces of the universe, which makes it all the more rewarding when all is said and done, and a handful of adventurers remain to claim victory.